In front of me you can see the fruit of yesterday's work. Which are the 4 leg blanks are all dimensioned. The only thing I have left to do is take them to final length and cut the taper on them. So I've actually already determined what are going to be my main faces, the show faces if you will. From there I'm just going to simply I'm going to cut the taper on them using just a saw and then plane them up with my smoothing plane or a block plane or whatever, and we'll go from there. But I need these to be 32 inches long, and I need it to be 32 inches long with a 3-inch taper at the bottom. And it tapers down from 1 1/4 here. It'll start at 3 inches, and it'll taper down to 1 inch on 2 sides. And that's it. It's pretty simple. You just draw out your lines, mark your lines, draw them out, and then cut them off, and then smooth it out. It should be good. There it is. That's that. A nice little off cut here, and I seem to have cut pretty square. The line is gone on almost all edges. There's a little bit of it left right on the back here. All right, you might not be able to tell, but this piece is about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch higher than the fence I have, and so I'm thinking I'm gonna just add this piece of wood behind it to protect it from tear out, from blowing out in the back. Actually, I tried chamfering on the back here of this end, and it still blew out a little bit, and so I fixed it, but I'm not wanting to take that risk. There we go. That's what I'm going to do for all the pieces. Yeah, so my miter box is definitely a little bit out of alignment. It's unfortunately is this tiniest little bit out. I've got all these legs dimensioned and cut down to 1/4 inch past their final length. So it should be 32, and they're 32 in just a hair under 1/4. Everything's all square, and what I did is I took the first leg I made and I used that to compare everything else, and so I just used my fingers to make sure it felt the exact same length, and I kept using the shooting board until everything felt good and the same. So now what we're going to do is going to lay out the taper on the bottom of each leg. Remember, that'll be 3 inches in from the bottom, and then it'll go down from 1 3/4 down to 1 inch taper at the bottom. And I'm going to set this to 1 inch. You could come in 3/4 of an inch, or you could measure out 1 inch. And I think I want to measure out 1 inch because maybe, I don't know, if it's a little smaller or if it's a little thicker, I don't know, if it's less than 1 3/4, if it's slightly more, I don't know. I'm pretty sure these are 1 3/4 inches, but even so, I'm going to measure out the inch, that way that the final dimension is exactly 1 inch and there's not really any variation there. So what I like to do is when I need something to be precise, I set it on my gauge and then I test it against my square and just see just how close they are. And if you can see, they line up pretty well. So 1 inch here and 1 inch here, just to make sure. And I do that not because this doesn't have markings, it does, but I don't know, the markings are really small, and then there's the centimeters on the other side, and I'm fine with using the metric system, no problem, but since I'm using inches, I want to make sure that I've read the right line. And so this one's much easier to read at 1 inch. And so I set it to 1 inch here, and then that just is my double check. It's my redundancy. This is something I'm not going to be able to change once I cut it, so I want to make sure I get it right. So what you're going to do is you're going to find your faces that are going to show. So if this is my front left piece here, we're going to measure in. Let me point this out for you. So this is my front left leg. We're going to measure in 1 inch from the front, and that'll get us back to here. then we're going to measure in another inch, or a separate inch from the side, and then we'll just draw lines at 3 inches. So that's 3 inches, and then we'll just draw the lines. We're going to measure so from the front. We're going to measure down 1 inch, and just take it all the way across. So then my other face that's going to show is going to be this. So I'll measure down 1 inch from it. So that's what's going to be kept. That's what's in the pencil. Now I'm going to measure up 3 inches. So I'm going to set a large. I'm going to keep this one at 1 inch. And measure up 3 inches. Whatever your taper is, you just measure up. And I'm going to make a line. On both the faces that will be seen. So the show faces, I guess you want to call them. And if possible, keep working with your reference faces. It's not always possible because I didn't necessarily make my reference faces the faces I'm going to be keeping or the showing. Mark that. What you'll be doing is you're going to be connecting the lines you're keeping. So what I like to do is I've got my lines there. I'm going to take this little knife and I'm going to make a very clear little notch in the edge there. Gives me something to reference off of, right? Or just at least to see better. Then I'm going to take this and I'm just going to run it across. Well, before I'm really kind of paranoid, so yep, that's 3 inches. And I'm just going to connect the lines. And you can run a pencil if you want, it doesn't matter. I mean, whatever you want to do. Okay, so can you see the first taper there? Not bad. This is how it's going to be oriented. So now I'm going to connect the other face real quick. I'll admit this is nerve-wracking. I'm trying to make sure I'm doing all the right things. But again, I just got to remember that if this is the outside corner, so if this corner here is this corner here, it stays square. And just don't cut that corner. So what I've done is I've clamped this so it forms more or less this parallel line with my bench or somewhere near there. And it's pretty sturdy. I'm just gonna, I don't want to be trying to cut in some weird position. I want to make sure that I have a pretty clear running room for this. I don't expect my saw to hit that clamp, so I'm good. And hopefully this works. Just nervous. It's not bad. My hand is hitting the bench here, so I wonder if I come down like this. So let's give you an idea of what the taper looks like. Cool. Oh man, that looks great. Then this cut was so much more successful. You see how close I stayed to the line? Much better. And now that I've got that taken down to my lines, I'm going to just come back with a smoother. Right, there's the finished taper. Look at the... There you can see I've got a 4-inch mark and a 4.5 inch. The reason why I do that is because the bottom of the side rails will be, the actual bottom rail will sit here at the 4-inch mark, but the tenon will be here. So now I'm going to mark, I'm going to mark my line all the way up on the inside of these faces here. And I'm going to start my mark at the line I just made at 4.5 inches and run it all the way up. I prefer to pull on the marking knife rather than push. In fact, I'll just go ahead and do that on all my legs, but I won't show you that for now. So I have one line on each of the legs that you've seen. And now I'm going to take another. I'm going to take another marking gauge. I'm going to take the iron that I'm going to use in the Stanley 45, which is just a hair over a 1/4 inch. It's like a 32nd over, but it's the 1/4 inch iron. So what I'll do is I'll lay it right there on the groove. Then bring my knife right up to it and mark. So like I said, I'm going to bring the knife right up. I'm going to lay it on the line just like that and take my knife point. You want to put it right at the front because that is what's going to be doing the cutting, right? So that's going to be your measurement. So I'll hold my knife and make my mark. Then I bring my gauge in, just set it in that knife line, that little knife mark. Tighten it down and then check again. It should pass right through the middle of it, which it does. So I've got my second marking gauge set, and the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to score the line for the groove. I want to score the line for the groove to avoid tear out. I've got this down to its final thickness, and there's a knot here, and I don't know. Just I'm trying to, out of an abundance of caution, it'll take me 10 extra minutes to do this at most, and I just want to make sure I'm prepping for everything. Run your second line all the way up. The first one, you want it to be good, but you don't want it to catch the grain and then veer off course, which can happen. So usually the first one for me is just a preliminary pass. Then I do like a second and third, much deeper cut. I know I'm doing a groove, but the thing is that if you look at the plane, it has this skate right here. The iron is housed right in this little gap. You can see it on the side. So it's housed in here. more or less like that. And so for me to be able to make a groove, you need unrestricted access for this front to guide it, right? And since I'm going to stop it, it's a stopped groove, I have to either do this all by hand, or if I want to use this at all, I have to essentially start by creating a mortise. I'll show you here. In the groove, back until my skate on the front can clear. And that would be somewhere around here. So I'll have to mortise out, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches, something like that. And I don't want to do it just the amount because I don't want it to hit and then ride over and then damage the surface. This is nice. And as you can see, I took my mortise here down to. I took my mortise here down to relieve space here for the skate. And the skate rides in front and it stops just in time. Now, if there's anything I will say about this is that, I mean, I'm happy with that groove, but I am a little nervous by how thin that wall is over here. I'm a little nervous by how thin that is there, but I think because there will be 1, 2, 3 rails, that'll give it a lot of extra support. So in the end, I think it'll be fine. So I got the legs done, got the grooves cut, they're tapered. And so that means I'm basically done with this portion. I've got to now start cutting some joinery and cutting the tendons on some rails and stiles and whatnot, and then fitting them to the legs. Pretty satisfied with how they turned out. A couple of mishaps, no big deal though. And I'm pretty satisfied. Just got to clean them up and start doing some assembly work once I get the other, well, not yet, I guess, but I still have to do some tendons, like I said. And then we'll start seeing this thing look like an actual piece of furniture.